Hey, I'm Jamie with Guitarist.
And I'm Richard. Hi.
So, today we've got two guitars made by PRS, very similar spec. One is made in Indonesia and the other is made in Maryland, USA, the home of PRS. Now, the US made one is not a core line model, it is one of the S2s, which is the sort of entry-level US made PRS line. And this is the SE, which is made by Cortec for PRS in Indonesia. This one is £1,180 and your one is
£2,899.
£1,600 between them. Which one is worth the candle? We're going to find out, so stick around with us and we'll tell you what we think is best value. Okay, so we're going to do a bit of a side-by-side comparison of what these guitars offer, and we're going to start with the S2, which is the US-made model. So these are three pickup guitars. PRS are known for their tone tweaking, for their switching options and so on, and these don't disappoint on that level.
Certainly
So
not.
what do we get here on the S2, Richard?
Well, I mean, these are made alongside the core models with a slightly simplified process, so we get a lot of the same things on this. We've got one of PRS's finely tuned circuits. They are notoriously secretive about exactly what goes on under the hood. You know, I guess I don't blame them. We have a mahogany neck, and that is the pattern regular, as opposed to something like the wide thin, but we'll get into that, won't we? We have a scarf joint attaching the headstock, which is a cheaper way of manufacturing, but very strong. There was this same controversy over the Gibsons with the three-piece necks and the volute. Yeah. This is a three-piece mahogany, but it's got the scarf joint. It's stronger.
Yeah, and there's actually, we pointed this out straight away, the fretboard is rosewood and the tint of the rosewood is rather pink naturally, it's not a stain or anything like that.
Yeah, I know, I was surprised by that, and I'm encouraged by that, because I think a tint will probably wear off, or it's bound to, you know. Yeah. One refret away from disaster.
We've got the birds, of course, the famous birds, but here they are in vintage ivory acrylic, I think.
Well remembered, actually. Yeah, I was just struggling with that. Yes. Yeah. So it looks great, actually. It's just the right sort of shade of white. It's not bright white. We've got the wing tuners. Again, they're the same as you'll find on the core model, which is getting up around $5,000, isn't it? I mean, that's
quite a price difference.
Just for a bit of perspective. We have, well, I'll talk about the hardware, but as opposed to the electrics first. The same bridge as you get on the US bolt-on guitars, and I think it's the same bridge that you've got on there.
It's on the SE, so it's yeah, that's the same spec, but on the core line models, that's only on the bolt-ons, that bridge, but it appears here on the Indonesian-made SE as well. So it's quite interesting that previously S2 used to have the Indonesian parts mostly, but on an American body. Now they've upgraded some of the pickups to the full
yes,
US
in fact,
spec.
these are the full US. They're the 5815 LT pickups, which come in at about 7.2 something K each of them. Ever so slightly more power in the bridge, which is, you know, the normal thing these days. And then we have the narrow field humbucker in the middle, and looking down, it's actually slightly staggered to go with the string radius, which is a nice touch. So the humbuckers themselves have a form of coil split. Well, it is coil split, but rather than turning off one of the coils, it's just vastly reducing the output of one of them.
So it's a subtler version of that old trick for making things sound a bit lighter and more single core light. And you'll also notice the neck pickup, the neck humbucker has been reversed.
Yes, indeed. Though, I mean, with the coil split in, you know, it's very difficult to say. A subtle difference. I guess it depends on the rig, and depending on a completely clean tone might be different. But it's not out of phase or anything like that. for those of you that like the kind of Peter Green type thing. It's not out of phase.
I think you're saying it's so that the slug coils rather than the screw coils are what's voiced when you do the coil.
Yeah, when you bump the switch, yes.
Yeah,
so you'll get a different voicing.
And so, you know, PRS guitars are known for their sort of curvaceous, you know, beautiful lines. So what's going on here with this one?
Well, I mean, the part of the simplified production process, I mean, I've already talked about the scarf joint and everything. This is much more of a flat top. In actual fact, I think their word is asymmetric bevel, which you have around here, and a little bit more for your arm. That's a solid maple top, so that's not a veneer. That is actually a really nice piece of flame maple, two-piece top, book matched. I don't know, it looks nice anyway. And I actually do quite like the flatter top coming down the centre. That's a personal preference of mine. I don't like too much of that arch. And these controls aren't recessed at all. They're just on top of the top. Again, which I quite like, the way that I like to play, to sort of maybe flip the volume on and off, sometimes a curved top. So again, I just wanted to emphasise that though that is a cheaper production process, it might actually be what you like. So I wouldn't be sort of thinking that it's not desirable compared to the other spec.
So you're playing through a JTM 45, you've got a blues driver here. Do you want to show us a few sounds so we can hear some of that functionality in play? Because we've got a 5-way selector, so run us through what the selector actually selects.
Right, just for clarity, I'm not using the blues driver at the moment, though I've got a bit of a crunchy sound set on the JTM 45, though I might kick that on for some fun later. So at the moment, I've got everything sort of full fat, the tone control right up, and I'm bringing the bridge pickup volume up. Let's hear that. So you're hearing that real bloom on the bottom notes from the JTM 45. Out of interest, I'm going to bring this down because, you know, they have their special treble bleeds and... So you can hear that that treble bleed is working in a very natural way. That's part of the way they tune the circuit with a capacitor and a resistor, I think. Don't shoot me if I'm wrong, or drop a comment. So that's the bridge pickup. So I think we should hear it with the partial coil split.
Yes.
You can hear there's a power drop, but there's not a massive volume drop, which is nice. So if I... So we've got a little bit more of that twang, especially on the front end of the note. I mean, it's a little bit sweeter, a little bit more stratty, really, though I suppose it's probably would technically be more telly-ish.
Quite like the fact that they haven't knocked it back too much. It's just giving you a little subtle variation. It's not gone back to a sort of anemic kind of...
I know what you mean. Fraction. It's like some of the fake analog delays. You would just suddenly do that. Yeah, this is a lot more natural and a lot more usable. Yeah. Yeah, just very easy. The controls are calibrated in such a way that you get what you hope for when you adjust them. So when I'll put that back onto full humbucking, and then I'm going to bump it onto the next position, which, as you probably expect with a 5-way selector, gives us the bridge and the middle. So let's hear that. This is the narrow field, and the reason that it's called that is obviously the magnetic field is narrower, like a single coil. So even though it's a humbucker, you've got a little bit more high frequency content, less bass content. So what if I single coil that bridge pickup? It's worth bearing in mind that the low end on the JTM 45 is very chewy. But I quite like that we've got that, because if I bump this down to about 6, so that's pretty versatile. I mean, it's not the most versatile setup, a JTM 45 raw turned up like that, but this is working very well.
That's right. So what this really does is, with these combinations of switches and pickups, it's giving you, rather than more of the same, you're getting some definite distinct shades of, it'd be great for like a function band or something like that where you...
Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah, you'd only need to take one guitar and some spare strings or whatever. I mean, I suppose I should probably recap. I'll speed things up and make it a little bit easier to follow. So we've had the full fat bridge and we've had this split bridge, though it's a partial split rather than a full one. Now we've got bridge and middle, and I split the bridge for that, so we got a little bit more in the Strat world, though there's a fatter version of that available, which is quite a nice lead sound. It sort of seems more middly.
Yeah.
The middle position of the 5-way selector, any Strat players will go, well, that's the middle. And apparently not. This is the 2 humbuckers.
Yeah.
So there isn't a selection where that narrow field humbucker is available on its own. So that, let's hear it with both of these on full, double coil, full fat mode. And let's split them both. And that's just some random bluesy licks for you there, but that's both split, and obviously there are permutations. You could leave the bridge on full fat, you could leave the neck on full fat.
What does the bridge on full fat and the neck on half sound like? Because that would probably be quite a usable tone.
Right.
A little bit of warmth from the neck.
And then
I remember having guitars in the past that had loads of switching options, and it was never a very satisfying contrast between what was offered. And I think this one actually has done quite a good job of offering you some things you might actually like.
I must say, yeah, that's a really good point, because I often will groan when I see something like that, and I think, right, I've got to demonstrate this, and all these tones, only sort of 5 of which are really what people would want. Yeah. But this is truly giving a lot of usable sounds, in a sensible format as well. Yeah. It's easy to negotiate, to navigate.
It's not very hard, is it? So what do you get? Well, that's the bridge and neck humbucker together, split or not. If we go back to full fat, what's next on the 5-way?
Back to full fat, and then we get, it becomes more predictable. We've got middle and neck. So So again, we're going through the amp that's not known for its clarity at the low end on these settings, and we're still managing to hear what's going on. I'll split them. I'll split the neck. Sorry, there's no point in splitting them both. I mean, I could do. Might sound any different, but.
So I think that's quite valid. I think in the studio you might find with a mix, actually just flicking that switch backwards and forwards, you do find the
and in the context of a band mix as well, you hear these subtleties a bit more, I think. That's why I wanted to play the same lick over and over, really, and just flick between the two, because I'm in the room here, I'm hearing quite a difference. So you've got that. We're back to the sort of Strat lineup, and then of course we've got the full humbucking neck. I should have said before I did it, but now I've done it, so I'll say it afterwards. That's the slug coil of the neck pickup, which is giving me a bit more of the SRV sort of flavour, of another variation.
Yeah, it's got that sort of bounce and snap to it, which is nice. That's interesting. I don't normally on other guitars gravitate towards the split options, because they can sound a bit like a sort of, diet diet version of the full pickup rather
yeah, well,
than
the volume drop for me often makes them just impractical to use unless you set a level for that or set a boost specifically for when you do that. Then you've got two things to do. But for me, these function in the way that I always thought that the coil split should.
Yeah, it's a nice selection. I would genuinely, I mean, if you do find yourself needing to sort of dial things in or wanting to get just exactly the right sort of thing to sit in the mix, you've got to say that's all your options you could really want for there, over 3 pickups, apart from maybe the middle on its own. But, I don't think you're going to exactly, miss it all that much because there's a lot there on offer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'll tell you what, at this point, should we go over to this one to sort of sort of point out the differences? So, okay, this is the Indonesian-made version, and there are differences. I mean, superficially, they look very similar, but I'll walk you through them. Firstly, we have a slightly different body here. It is a mahogany body, but it's got a maple veneer over the top here, so it's very nice figured veneer. It looks quite natural. And the sort of curves at the top are what they call a shallow violin arrangement. So with that one, there's quite a hard line where the asymmetric bevel sort of ends and the curvy bits on the edge begins. This one is arguably a bit closer to the classic core line PRS idea, except it is very flat over a large part of its surface. So there's no hard bevel, but you don't get quite that lovely sort of voluptuous whale back kind of curve on it that you would on the core line. Same bridge as before, which is good.
Yeah, I think they're exactly the same on these.
Yeah, this one here has a maple neck. So underneath this sort of stain is actually a maple neck. So it's departing from the script of the core and that one, even though that's a 3-piece mahogany. This is a maple neck, and that used to happen on certain Gibsons and things in the past as well.
And the sort of Norlin era Gibsons,
The profile is wide thin on this one, so yours is pattern regular. This is wide thin. To me, it doesn't feel wide thin in the sort of Ibanez sense, where it's like an aircraft carrier deck, super
it's
flat.
more subtle.
So it's a bit of a misnomer. It just feels quite like a quite comfortable sort of C into D profile to my hand. We've got 5815 humbuckers here, but these ones are the S version, which is Indonesian made, so they do differ from the US ones you've got there. As does the middle pickup, which is the Narrowfield DD. So if you've been following PRS guitars, you know that they brought out the somewhat telly-like NF53 not so long ago. This is the SE version of that pickup, so it's a Narrowfield DD, and it's got these kind of blade-like poles. It's not a continuous blade, but it's like almost like
the side of the string.
It's like a sort of Morse code.
of them or something.
Exactly, and so that is a little bit different to what you've got the standard Narrowfields there.
The flat pole pieces.
So both humbucking. What else is worth mentioning on this one? I mean, as mentioned, the bridge is the same. I mean, you've got the same sort of lampshade style fluted controls here, and the same control layout. So all the things that Richard demonstrated there are also true of this one. So I think at this point, what I'd quite like to do is just to keep things the same. I'm playing through a hand-wired Vox AC15 here. It does sound quite surprisingly close to the JCM45, but not exact. So I know we'll get comments if we don't hand for the sounds.
Right.
Don't hand it to Richard for the exact same.
I will unplug this.
Yes. One moment. We'll just do our magic. So Richard's got the guitar now. Let's do a quick. We won't linger as long as we did last time because we'll explain what we're doing. But let's do a quick rattle through the same settings on this guitar.
Right. So bridge, full fat. And then split. Right, back to full fat on the bridge, and now bridge and middle. I'll split the bridge again. I can really hear that, and let's try this treble bleed. It all works great. I mean, they're slightly different. These may be alpha pots, if I remember correctly, but I'm not really hearing any tonal penalty. Is that a phrase? Okay, and I'm going to put that back on full fat and go for the middle, which is both. Split them both. mean, as I mentioned earlier, we've gone with this JTM 45 driven, and the low end can be a bit overwhelming. You know, it's why people used to use tube screamers and things. But you can really control that here. And if we can control that, then we can use it through any rig and get a great sound as far as I'm concerned. I might skip straight to middle and neck, and that's everything full. And let's split. Most noticeable on the higher strings, but it's definitely there where you've just got that thinner sound, and you can, of course. It is a completely different sound. When it's there, right back to full, onto the neck. And let's split that. If you heard the chord I was imagining, that lick would have made sense, of course. But so we've got this same lineup exactly. So it's interesting to hear that this works as well, really.
It does. I mean, you know,
it's not exactly the same, I suppose,
because we can't, you know, identically A/B them, you know, in real time here, and perhaps we can do something in the edit. But what I, you know, just subjectively here is a little bit more snap from that one, and it's left me thinking, wonder if that's the influence of that Narrowfield DD there, or
yep, or perhaps a bit of maple neck. I'm not sure. Yeah, but certainly it seems logical that there would be a difference, and that would be it.
I mean, but having said that, as much as there are subtle differences, I'm also surprised by how similar these guitars sound on the whole, given that there's 1,600 quid between them.
Yeah.
I mean, that one's got like pretty more standard tuners on it. This has got this sort of American style with the brass posts, locking tuners. You know, that's a nice bit of high-end kit. I think PRS have realised that perhaps S2 and SE were getting a little bit close for comfort to each other in terms of the quality and the sort of standard.
Yeah.
They've actually put a bit more bling on the S2s now to sort of differentiate them. And
it's more defined as a tier, isn't it, in the hierarchy?
And they've got these huge, great strap buttons, which are a bit love or hate. I personally, I mean, once it's on, it's on.
Are they
That's
different on there? Oh yes, I see what you mean.
Yeah. So, I mean, what are your thoughts then, Richard, having sort of picked up both of these?
I have to say, I mean, I suppose it depends on the individual preference. I personally quite like a maple neck. I like the rigidity of it. I like the strength of it. Though three-piece mahogany, it's just that's tricky. So I'm confusing my own priorities there. I think that ultimately, I think I'd go to a shop and try out as many of them as I could get my hands on and compare. And based on these two, I do wonder whether I might be tempted to keep the 1,600 quid, really.
Well, here's what I think. If I was going to buy, let's say, you know, because not everybody has a collection of guitars. If I was going to buy one guitar and I was going to push the boat out a bit because it was going to be my one and only, I would probably be tempted to go for this just because it is a little bit nicer. The feel and the fit and finish are just a tad kind of more special. You feel like you really, now that they've kind of changed the spec a bit and upgraded it in parts, you do feel like you've really bought a piece of that classic PRS heritage.
Yeah, I suppose so. You might buy it, and given its feature set, you might say, well, I'm going to get one really great guitar. If,
though, I had a few, you know, let's say we've got all of the standard things that you've got to have in your electric collection if you're going to have a few, you know, the Strats, the Tellys and so on. If I decided that I wanted to have a guitar that had the capability to offer a range of tones, let's say for that, you know, proverbial wedding gig or whatever, I would be tempted to just go for that because I don't think there's not 1,600's worth of difference.
No,
if that's your approach.
As we were talking, I realised this is heavier, and I reckon that might be the maple neck.
Yeah.
Though it could easily be other things, but I feel perhaps the balance might not be as... It doesn't disappear in the same way when you pick it up.
I would say subjectively as well. Aesthetics are completely subjective. So this is not an objective plus or minus. This asymmetric bevel in some ways, you could argue it's less true to the sort of PRS curviness than the shallow violin, because that has a completely graduated curve to it, even though it doesn't go up to the same heights.
Yeah.
So I would say that there is a slight aesthetic consideration there. If you like that and you dig it, this is, you know, real deal USA guitar with a cool look to it. That one does not distance itself very far from the original, though. It is less fancy, but you know, it's a pretty good stab for a 1,200 quid guitar.
And I've got to say, I mean, that's incredible. And the wiring and the pickups, they've not just slapped cheaper components in and called it a good job. They've really put plenty of effort into that. And as I'm pretty sure that at some point in recent times I've played other guitars from the same factory with the same pickups and been impressed with them then as well. These are not cheap microphonic rubbish pickups like, I don't know, some viewers will remember from years ago. The first thing you do with the guitar is take it to somewhere and get someone to fit some new pickups to it. That's not necessary here.
So definitely not. So I think it's you pays your money and you takes your choice. And I think, so what should PRS be applauded for in these guitars? Just how good the cheaper version, quote unquote, is, and how close it is to the S2, which is the US made one. So you don't feel cheated. And for those that want the cachet of the full fat US version, well, you've got that. So that's it really. Two fine guitars with a bit to choose between them, but we'll let you decide on that. If you have enjoyed watching today, then hit like and subscribe, and we will see you again next time.